Danny didn't tell me my time limit, so I'm going to talk all day. Thank you, Ross, for saying opening prayer this morning. Thank you to Brian and all his education staff for organizing and getting us on. And thank all of you for coming. Always good to listen to Ross, and it's always good to listen to our older people when they talk about our treaties and talk about our ways and how we should live our lives. It's always good to hear that because unfortunately, probably the majority of us are assimilated First Nation people. Me being one of them. I don't know my language. I know a little bit of my language. I knew a lot more when I lived with my grandmother and my grandparents, and they spoke it to us every day. And I could understand it really well then. And today I can only understand a little bit. What I can always remember is me going, great, thank you. I woke up this morning actually thinking of two women. One was Mary, who's one of our keynote speakers. I wish I could read her biography but I'm at that level where I need to go. The print is too small. Didn't bring no reading glasses. But the other lady that I woke up thinking about, because yesterday was International Women's Day, was Lynn Cody, because I saw her on Facebook. And the dreaded Facebook, some of us love it, some of us hate it, because it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. But she was in a community. I don't know if it was her own community or another community, but someone had videotaped her, and she was doing soda lessons, and they had posted it they posted it on YouTube, and somebody had shared it on Facebook so that we could all see it and share it so that all our friends on our contact list can see it as well. And her video was a whole hour long. And somebody had videotaped her that long and put it on YouTube. And I could see some of the key First Nation members in Vancouver being real happy that she had done that or someone had done that and put it on Facebook, and it's a way for them to learn. It's kind of ironic that we're talking about our language. Ross was mentioning language, and Trudeau talking about we lose our self-identity when we don't have our language. And that's probably true for the most part, but I just wanted to say, I know she's not here. I did share her video so that everybody else might get a little lesson in Soto language. I know, sorry, there's other languages in the crowd, but there's also apps on our iPhones. But I knew Lynn when I was growing up. She was my sister-in-law for many years. She was married to my brother, and she didn't live an easy life either, like everyone else, but she went through the stages of alcohol. But I was so proud to see her on Facebook, sharing her language and trying to teach other people as well. But one of the first things that she talked about was kinship amongst First Nation people. She talked about how you greet your people in your language. Sorry, I also woke up with a real sore throat. She talked about how to greet your people in your language. I think about that when we shake hands. And she talked about the older people, our elders, our knowledge keepers. The first thing they'll ask you is, where are you from? They'll ask you in their language, where are you from? Because that's how they identify. That's how they identify with you, where you're from. Not what city you're from. They mean which First Nation, which reserve are you from. And she talked about that's very important to them. When you greet them, they want to know where you're from, so they can identify your people, your culture, your language, you know. So anyways, she's got at least 5 or 6 videos out there. Anyone on YouTube, just search up her name, and I'm so sure you can find her videos. I know I saved her videos, so hopefully I can, hopefully next time I see all my older people, I can greet you in my language, right? So the next lady I was thinking about was Mary, and Mary's been on my mind a while because as you read in her biography, she's the first woman that was appointed to office of the Treaty Commissioner. And I think she deserves a big round of applause for that. Yesterday being International Women's Day, and when I got on Facebook at the end of the day and I was reading, I see a lot of the posts going out to the women out there. And we all know, sorry man, we all know the women are the backbone of our household, our band offices, and our communities. Right? Without them, you wouldn't have any soup and bannock. But I know there's men starting to be good cooks out there as well. But you all know your moms, your wives, your aunts, your nieces, right? They're strong, resilient women. And I was so proud when Mary was appointed office of the Treaty Commissioner. Whether it's like on Facebook, you always have negative comments, right? But I believe as a lawyer, she also is a lawyer. You'll read in her biography that a grassroots woman from Kizakus First Nation, I believe that she'll do us good in that position that she's in. So I was quite pleased to hear that she was, I was more than pleased, I was really proud. I was really proud that she was appointed, especially from the Yorkton Tribal Council, from my neighbor in Reserve, right? I know we've always had men in that position and they were always from the north, and I was so happy to see a First Nation woman be appointed there. I don't want to take a lot of time, and I was hoping we would have a drum group today, but Brian had said we're going to be very modern today, which is okay too, right? We are modern treaty people, and I love the words that Danny said, treaty then and treaty now, right? Although we're modern, we're a lot more modern than we were back then. Some of us are still using flip phones. I see you guys up there. We have a gift for Mary. If my EA, Danielle, can bring it up, please. This is going to be my only opportunity to acknowledge Mary, being from the Yorkton Tribal Council and Kizakus First Nation. I don't know when she's going to be in our territory again, so I want to take this opportunity to present her with a star blanket. Is anybody here from Kizakus First Nation elected leadership? Zelda! Leonard? Oh, Leonard, come on up, please. Can you help us? And I saw Sun here earlier, too. I just don't see him right now. Guys, these are her elected leadership from Kizakus First Nation. I just ask if you could help us present her with the star blanket. Thank you. We also have, it's going on Facebook. We also have a ribbon skirt to present to her. Now.
Yeah, I'll fit it.
We got a bit extra good. We have a lot of great sewers in our community. We have from Ocean Man, from Kizakus First Nation, from Cody First Nation. We contract them all to do star blankets for us. The lady from Ocean Man is actually in her 90s, and she's still sewing star blankets. So we usually have a lot on hand. But ribbon skirts was a new addition. To our gifts that we keep on hand for our women. And there's been controversy on Facebook about a ribbon skirt. And I was reading, I don't take part in the controversy, I just read it. I was reading that there's controversy in regards to star blankets, so a ribbon skirt. So maybe today, when we have our knowledgeable people teaching us and telling us, maybe we could have a little lesson on a ribbon skirt. The controversy was that only old women with white hair are supposed to wear a ribbon skirt. I know we see a lot of our young First Nation women wearing them, right? So I have one I wear it. So if I'm doing something wrong, somebody, I really appreciate if somebody would tell me. But with that, Brian, thank you. I don't want to take up too much time, but and thank everyone for coming. I'm sure stick around. We're going to have a great Indian meal over there. Definitely pierogies, sausage. It's great. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day.
Our next speaker will be Mary Culbertson. She's, I'll just read a part of her bio. I'm not going to read I think it's about 5 minutes. Mary Culbertson is a member of the Peacecoast First Nation and is the first woman to be appointed as Treaty Commissioner for Saskatchewan. The reason why I'm reading fast is I went to residential school. I didn't want to get slapped around for reading slow. She was appointed in January 2018 and will serve a 3-year term. She received a law degree from the University of Saskatchewan. He's a member of the Law Society of Saskatchewan. He's the first member of Peacecoast to achieve a law degree and become a lawyer. And we're here today to discuss treaty about now and then, and we have also Eric Detousas. He should be here around 11 o'clock, and Saul Sanderson used to be a member of the FSIN for a number of years, and has talked about treaty to a lot of our leaders that are here now and in the past. And one of the reasons why we come here today is it was mandatory in all schools across the province of Saskatchewan to teach treaties in the classroom. And that's what we're trying to convey to our First Nation schools, as some of our public schools in Saskatchewan are now teaching treaties in the classroom. And that's what we want our young people to understand treaties. So that's one of the reasons why we have them here, and then we have some of our schools attending also. So with that, I'll pass the mic on over to Mary Culbertson. And just before that, just like everybody, we all watched the Olympics, right? And we had a young lady from Cody First Nation played in the Olympics, and all you saw on Facebook was, that's my cousin. Now we have Ethan Bear from Uchan, and I'm pretty sure he's my cousin. Mary is she is my cousin.
Thank you, Danny, and Trevor Chief Isabel. Danny really is my first cousin. Our moms were sisters. Whenever I have been going anywhere in this last few weeks since I've been appointed to this position, I always start with saying who I am and where I'm from, because that's how I was brought up, and that's how I know that we identify with each other. Well, my name is Mary Culbertson. I'm from the Musco family on Keesakoos First Nation. My dad was half Irish and a bunch of other things. So my mom lost her status when she married my dad. So for the first about 8 years of my life, I wasn't an Indian according to the government. We grew up back and forth between the farm north of Pelly and on Keesakoos and in Kukulis. And there was a little gray house that we lived in for a while. And my good memories of running to Kukulis when I'd get heck at my mom's, in between the little bush, was always from our little gray house to Kukulis and Miss Winston's place. We have a big family, our Musco family. Kukulis and Miss Smith had about 18 children that were born, and many passed away. And I was counting one time, and I think I was up to about 163 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and then I stopped, and that was years ago. We have hundreds of relatives from our family tree, and many adopted wherever we go. Yesterday, I went to the Treaty Relations Commission in Manitoba and met with the Treaty Commissioner, Loretta Ross, over there. And she's a Ojibwe from Hollow Water. And my mom couldn't make it. I wanted to bring my mom with me to meet with their Elders Council and Speakers Bureau. And she couldn't make it because of the roads on the reserve, and we had to leave without her. I felt really bad. I said, there'll be other times. So we went there, and I was teasing on the way. And I said, just like Cuckoo and Nellie, I said, she's going to go there, and we'll probably walk out with about 5 new relatives. But then I realized, geez, I'm more like my mom and my cuckoo, because I left having about 4 new cousins from that meeting yesterday. Because our roots started off in Manitoba area, what's known as Pine Creek, Duck Bay. My cuckoo was Nellie Grass from Key First Nation, and my Miss is Roy Musco. And he was a late senator of the FSIN, just like we have a FSIN senator here today, Saul Sanderson. And we have Sharon Ben, who is, I walked in and I told her she was someone I had used in papers I'd written before, and like a role model when I was in law school. And she probably doesn't know that, but I remember sitting there thinking, I can't do this. I can't listen to what they're saying about our ways and our laws. And I was texting a friend of mine, and I said, I can't do this, I can't get through this class. And she said, no, you stay there, that's what you're supposed to do. They told us we have to learn the cunning of the white man, so our kids will know both sides. She said, you stay there. And then about a week later, this lady, Sharon Ben, came in and spoke at an event. It was a treaty gathering. There was a lot of law students who went there. So we went, got our gas money together. We had a donut on my car, and we went to go listen to Sharon. And one of the girls asked her exactly what we all wanted to know. How do you learn this and be okay learning this law when it doesn't work with what we know or how we were brought up? And she said, you walk in that classroom, you hang who you are outside the door. And you go in there and you learn their ways and you learn their laws. And when you come out, you pick up who you are again. So that's what I tried to do for my remaining years in law school. Do the best I can, learn what I can. And I worked in the federal government for many years. I was an officer there. I did drug interdictions and search coordination, did court for evidence, things like that. And it wasn't easy to work in that environment. Being called a lot of racist names, you know, because you're the Indian, you must be the one sneaking drugs in. You know, getting called really ugly words, and still having to go to work, because I have to feed my family. And I was like, I'm not going to let them beat me. And there was a couple of other of us who were First Nations, who were officers. And we'd kind of stick together. And we had a lot of allies, too. We had a lot of allies, non-First Nations officers, newcomers who weren't born here but had lived here all their lives and got jobs. We had lots of allies. And today, with the things going on in this province, and in Manitoba, across this country, and I know I'm supposed to be neutral, I'm supposed to be the treaty commissioner, the negotiator, the peacekeeper between two sides, but that's really hard to do right now. It's really hard to do. So we need allies. And I see some non-First Nations people here. And I'm getting kind of emotional, and I'm very sorry, but I'm usually not an emotional person. I'm kind of really cold and getting told. But what's been going on was hard. I was with the Bushy family until the day the trial started, and I couldn't help them anymore. Because of disappointment. But in the papers they give you to sign and agree to, you have to be loyal to Canada. And they have a Privy Council watching you. They send you letters if they think you're saying the wrong thing. But I can't be loyal to Canada or Canadians if we're not telling the truth. So many times I was with that family and watching those people cry because they weren't going to seek justice. And that Friday I had to text them and say, I can't be there. There's other people who will help you and be there. And my spouse was with me a lot of time in court. We'd sit there, and as an officer of the court, you have to just listen in the preliminary hearings, in the pre-trial motions, and you see this injustice and travesty going on in front of your face. And I have sons. We have a farm. We have farmland. My dad left it to us. It's just north of Fort Livingston. We go check on it all the time. I grew up there most of my life. My dad never shot anybody in the head. When I used to run out of gas, which as a teenager that happens a lot, thank goodness I'm by a farm, and that was around Pelly, because I knew I could open that door and it'd be okay because they're going to help us. I'd get heck for going around with no gas, or they'd call my dad or call my uncle expert, and I'd get heck again with no gas. And here you're just a teenager you're going around being a teenager, having fun, trying to go here and there. And then, now today you can't. Because it's okay to kill one of our kids. My boys went to go check on the farm. I think it was this past spring. And when they phoned me, Mom, there was 2 guys there. I don't know who they were. I said, well, who were they? Were from the reserve? No, they're non-First Nation. I said, what did they want? He goes, I don't know, they had guns. They were taking tires off the tractor. I said, what did you tell them? We told them, this is our farm, get out of here. And he said, some guy in town told him, go ahead, go there and take those tires. But my sons were hunting too. They weren't going to go shoot anyone because they were on our land. They just said, hey, you can't be here. Don't come back. So it's really hard to be neutral and loyal to Canada when these things are happening. So I'm going to tell the truth. And if that hurts some Canadians, then geez, I'll hand them a tissue. But I'm going to tell the truth. They tell me I have to be in this position if I don't tell the truth. And I see it all the time in front of us every day. We had friends from the States come up over Christmas. 2 of our good friends, they both have boyfriends from the US, so they came up. And they couldn't believe it. Just blatant racism, people being followed around in front of them. In Saskatoon in the stores. We go in other places. I'll get asked if I need any help. They'll help me find anything. My spouse will just get watched to make sure he's not stealing anything. Right? Because he's brown. Sorry, honey. But it's true. So I didn't plan on being emotional, but I saw all of our people here today, and I just kept thinking about those words in my Conflict of Interest Act and the terms and conditions I'm supposed to abide by, saying you must be loyal to Canada. So it doesn't mean I can't tell the truth. So I'm going to tell the truth in this job. And I'm not going to wait 6 months to settle in. I'm ready to go now, and I'm going to start doing this work now. It's been 2 years and there was no treaty commissioner. So now there's a treaty commissioner. Was promised over 100 years ago to the people when they signed these treaties. They would have a treaty commissioner. So here I am. And some people like it, some people don't, but oh well, I have a job to do. And that's what I'm gonna do. But we all need to help each other during these times. We need our allies. So, thank you for listening to what I have to say about being a loyal Canadian, as they want to impose, and how I'm going to tell the truth about what's been happening in our homelands, because I know we have to talk about it. So, thank you, Isabel, for making me emotional, starting with the star blanket and the skirt. And I'll just tell one quick funny story there about Leonard Shane. When he was chief, I graduated from law school. And, you know, as we know, our First Nations, we don't have a lot of extra money. So everyone was getting plaques. But there was a few of us that didn't get these plaques. So we just pretended to use someone else's plaque, and we took this picture, shaking hands, me graduating. I don't know whose plaque it was. I still never got a plaque, but I always remember that. He's like, let's just pretend. We'll just use this someone's plaque and pretend, smile. I said, okay. So I'll talk a bit about the Treaty Commission here before I have to move on to the schedule. I think I took up too much time. But the Treaty Commission office was established in 1989 by the Government of Canada and the FSIN. At the time, the most important treaty issue was the resolution of outstanding treaty land entitlements. Many of us know about TLE, Treaty Land Entitlement. Well, that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the work of those people at that time. So the OTC played a pivotal role in getting those treaty land entitlements in that framework going in Saskatchewan and solving some of the outstanding land issues. On the positive impact at that time, a resolution of the TLE dispute made a convincing case for its ongoing effectiveness. And people thought, geez, this looks really good, we went a long way, let's keep this going. And there's still many remaining outstanding issues. So here's something I found from when I used to have the Saskatchewan Indian magazine. So this was the official opening of the Treaty Commission office in 1990. It says Senator Ernie Mike has the ribbon officially opening the office of the Treaty Commissioner. And I think that was Chief Rowan Crow at the time, helping him cut the ribbon there. When the Treaty Commissioner's office was established, the first Treaty Commissioner was Cliff Wright. And he at one time was a mayor in Saskatoon, so he was pivotal in the treaty land entitlement work. He passed away in 2014. He was the first Treaty Commissioner. The second Treaty Commissioner was Judge David Arnault. He is now the chair of the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. Judge Arnault has been an excellent mentor to me over the last month or so. He'll come by, when I have questions, I'll just call him up. He's always there and willing to answer. And he's a great ally. He's done some really award-winning work on racism, and he's one of those allies that can go out there and just say how he sees things and what the reality is. After Judge Arnault, it was Bill McKnight. Bill McKnight was a Conservative cabinet minister, and he was at one time Minister of Indian Affairs. After Bill McKnight, it was George LaFawn from Muskeg Cree Nation, and he was there for 4 years. In 2016, the office became vacant, and there was no Treaty Commissioner for about 2 years until January 29th, I guess, is when I got appointed. So it's been almost vacant for 2 years. The mission of the Office of the Treaty Commissioner, from its mandate, is unique. It has two roles. One is to support a bilateral treaty table process between Government of Canada and FSIN. So in that agreement, they're supposed to meet 3 times per year. But the government likes to send technicians and bureaucrats. So there was one meeting on Tuesday where the government came down, and there was technicians and directors from FSIN. And I told both the parties, next treaty table, you bring the minister. Right? The minister has to be here because she needs to answer for a lot of things that are going on, and it's causing a lot of confusion out there. So those parties need to be at the table. My uncle Danny Musqua, Elder Danny Musqua, I went to go sit with him and visit one afternoon. And he used to always just call me baby. Oh, hello, my baby. Oh, come here. And then I walked in and he's married, treaty commissioner. So I felt kind of sad. I was a baby and he was there. And so we sat and had a long visit. And everything people were telling me for about a month, all different kinds of things, just, oh, you should do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. You know, everyone trying to tell you what you have to do. In 2 minutes, my Uncle Danny put me at ease and he just summed up everything and made sense in 2 minutes. He said, you get those parties to the table and you keep them talking. If they don't want to talk, you make them talk. He said, that's what your role is. You're the peacekeeper. You are there to try to get things back on track and get moving. There's outstanding issues that need to be addressed. You get those parties to the table and you get them talking. Then there's another aspect of the Treaty Commission. It's the Speakers Bureau. It's about education. The Speakers Bureau was created in 1999. Treaty commissioners choose who sits on the Speakers Bureau. So there hasn't been really an expansion of the Speakers Bureau for a few years. So come April 1, that's my plan, and I'm already working on it, is expanding that Speakers Bureau to be inclusive from all the treaty territories. We have 5 treaty territories that go across Saskatchewan, or that Saskatchewan sits on, and I want it to be inclusive, and that includes our Dene brothers and sisters, who there isn't a Dene on the Speakers Bureau right now. So I want to have that inclusive from all the way north, all the way south, and representative of all our linguistic groups. So we need to have a Speakers Bureau increase. If you're interested, then please just call our office and send me an email. I want to build a Speakers Bureau where, you know, the Treaty Commission office belongs to the people. It belongs to us. So I want to make sure that we're all included and everybody has a voice, and that we're all out there educating, not just non-First Nations, but our kids in our communities, each other, because we're losing that dialogue in our communities. And if we're not going to be teaching our kids and our grandchildren about the original spirit and intent of treaty and what that was, and how it was passed along to us through generations, and no one else is going to do it for us. So we need to reawaken that knowledge in our nations again. Treaty awareness across the province, across all sectors and within the public service. There's 2 partnerships that they have entered into right now. One is with the Ministry of Justice in training and educating their employees within corrections. So Dojack, Regina Corrections, the Richard Correctional there, Pine Grove, PA Correctional, Saskatoon Correctional, the youth facilities. I went to one of these training sessions to see what the message was that was being provided to corrections workers and Ministry of Justice employees. And they wanted to expand now their agreement with the OTC to existing employees, because they were only training people who were just coming in. But I didn't want them to have that generic message either. And so I went and I spoke with them, and I talked with them about how it was being an officer myself, and being all the time, mostly, one of the only First Nations and First Nations women as an officer. I worked in 3 different institutions. And I told them, don't forget these are human beings that you're looking after. You're supposed to be in care of human beings. They're not maggots, they're not scum. They're not just another Indian, these are human beings. And you are to be in care of them. And I talked about residential schools and the legacy there. how the people there are supposed to be looking after, they're there for a reason. They didn't just wake up one day and decide, I think I'll go do some robberies and end up in jail. They're there for a reason, because they have a lot of consequential harms in their life because of things that happen to them. And those things didn't just stop in school, right? They came back into our nations, into our communities, and into our homes. And then we learned it all over again. So maybe 2 or 3 generations of us didn't go to residential school, but the generations before us, we have a legacy that kept being passed down. And that's one of the things we need to discuss and talk about too. But people need to realize that's where our people have come from. And we have a lot of healing to do. And these are the people they're looking after, and they're human beings. Another aspect of the Speakers Bureau is that it's been pretty well established. Creating respect, building relationships throughout non-First Nations businesses, organizations, areas. And we have to keep doing that. We have to keep expanding. This past year, 163 requests for Speakers Bureau presentations were made, but only 6 of those were in First Nations. So that's something as a treaty commissioner going forward that I'd like to change, right? And I'd like to be in our First Nations communities more. But we don't want to go and impose either. So I was really excited to be invited here to our tribal council, where we're going to have so many people here from our First Nations and leadership here, and that we can sit and discuss and talk about these things together. I think that needs to happen more. Like I said, if we aren't teaching our kids and our grandchildren, nobody else is going to be teaching them about treaties. There's some teachers' workshops coming up. This is another aspect of what we do, treaty essential learnings. It's teaching treaties in the classrooms. They have a curriculum from K to 6, and there's curriculum developed for K to 12. One of the partnerships that I'm meeting with the U of S on is expanding that treaties in the classroom to university curriculum. When I was in law school, the only time that you heard about treaty, out of all the law classes that have to do with lands, resources, taxes, civil torts, criminal law, the only time you heard the word treaty was if you took the specific Aboriginal Studies law class. Or if you were lucky enough to get a class with, say, Saget Henderson or someone from the Native Law Center. Nobody even knew what residential schools were. And these are people who are going to be CEOs of companies, crown corporations, judges, lawyers. And nobody taught that in that law school. So that's not just in that law school. That's across all of the other faculties, right? We have a really good ITEP program at U of S, the Indian Teaching Education Program, and SUNTEP. Those are really good programs, and hopefully they can really push to be role models within the curriculum within our universities. Tomorrow is day 1 is the workshop, March 10th and 17th. They're both Saturdays. And it's professional development for people who work all week, a Saturday would be great. So it's in Regina. Tomorrow is day 1. It's called the History of Treaty Making, the day treaty was made. And there'll be several elders there in attendance to make sure that things are being talked about properly. Brenda Henneque, she's our Director of Education. She'll be there leading the workshop. And the Saturday after that is teaching treaties in the classroom. And that's for teachers and anyone as well. And so that's like having a base learning of treaty essential learnings. So the goal is to have teacher catalyst trainers in all our schools. And I really think that we should be doing this in our First Nations, having teacher catalyst trainers for treaty within our First Nations schools as well. Because like I said, if we're too busy out there trying to educate people who don't want to listen, then we're forgetting about our kids in our First Nations. One of the things I was talking with a friend last night on the phone about was town hall meetings. Last night there was a town hall in Purdue and it was the RCMP. They're mandated to have 87 town hall meetings across Saskatchewan in the next year. And this is in response to rural crime. So they went to the Purdue meeting. And there was kind of the usual sentiment there, if anyone comes on my line, I'm gonna shoot them. You know, when the police were there talking. But there were some First Nations people and leaders there as well, and they said, well, we came here to tell you, we can't just shoot people. No piece of equipment is worth a human life. So when you confront those things face to face, even if it's just 3 or 4 of you in a room of this size, you know, they stop, they back up, they change their tune. They start saying, well, I don't mean you. So when we confront those things head on, with words, you know, not violence, you know, things can hopefully change. But we can't give up hope. So I'm going to find out where these town halls are going to be being held. And I want to start going and sitting in there and listening to what's going on. And hopefully we can assist in facilitating some town halls and having discussions between rural First Nations communities and our local towns like Kamsack. Apparently the Kamsack mayor wants to reach out and start a reconciliation committee around Kamsack area and work with First Nations. But reconciliation is not for First Nations people to go ahead and start doing, right? We have to reconcile with our own issues amongst our nations and ourselves. Or that reconciliation of how treaty was breached, how it's not implemented, how it's continually breached, that doesn't come from First Nations people, that has to come from non-First Nations people, right? Because First Nations people are always the ones on this side saying, come work with us. You know, we're always the ones saying, come on, let's be partners. Let's go forward, let's work together. So that has to change, that reconciliation has to come from the other side. And that's where we need allies. We need people who their peers listen to. And I don't want to sound racist or using, you know, colors to identify people, but if a rich white person is telling other rich white people what they're doing is wrong, they're going to listen to each other. A First Nations person can stand in front of someone until they're blue in the face and say, this is wrong, you shouldn't do that, you can't act this way. No, what you're doing is wrong, that policy is wrong, it's discriminatory, it's racist. They don't listen to us, but they listen to each other. So that's where we need allies. And we can't give up hope. I was talking to David Curtin yesterday on the phone, and he said, I feel like there's no hope for our generation anymore. And I said, but there is hope. And I used an example of Rob Hundeby, the mayor from Elbow, who stood up at a SUMA convention and said, I was extremely racist. And I said lots of bad things about Native people. And they said, I've had companies approach my town saying we want to do business with you because there's no reserve nearby. So now he goes around saying sorry to people. I was walking in the hallway at my work one day and there was this guy who grabs me and hugs me and says, I'm so sorry. And I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, somebody called the cops. But it was this mayor, Rob Hundeby. That was his act of reconciliation, was saying sorry to First Nations people. And, you know, trying to be the leader in his community. And not wanting to do business with people who come into his town and say, we want to do business here because there's no Indians around. So there is hope. But we have to talk to the younger generation too. Right? Because where do they learn from? Where do our kids learn from? They learn from us, they learn from their parents. So we have to have that essentials learning on treaty partnerships, treaty relationships, and treaty obligations in our schools. And that's on reserve and off reserve. Another aspect of the Treaty Commissioner's Office is the research that they do. They have done a lot of research in many areas, including education, health, justice, land claims for First Nations. An example up here is the Standing Buffalo Dakota First Nation launches their community book. And this is the story of the Dakota Yaqui people of Standing Buffalo. And that was completed in 2015. And it's now a part of Treaty Resources for Saskatchewan. There's the history of the Canoe Lake people, Treaty 10. There's the history of our treaty elders in Saskatchewan. In that book, there's Uncle Danny Muskwa, deceased Uncle Miles Muskwa, late Norman Sunchild. Many of those people have gone on now. So our coming of age elders are the people who they talk things to. They have to take up that torch now of guiding us in when we're going out talking and guiding us in our meetings. I think that's the last slide. Oh, we're back to treaty. And I know there's a lot of discussion about reconciliation because people don't feel very reconciliatory with these things that have been going on and these verdicts and seeing how our people are not going to get justice in a system that's foreign to them. It wasn't built for our people to see justice in. So the work of the OTC is to promote that understanding for treaties. And I've been saying through the whole presentation, we have a lot of work to do. Hasn't been reaching the right audiences. When you have reconciliation, you have understanding. But reconciliation also means, in the easiest way I can explain it to my 4.5-year-old grandson, I'm trying to teach him these words, and he's like, I don't know what reconciliation is, I just want to play Sonic. And I'm like, no, you have to listen to me. And he's like, oh, okay, Grandma. I said, okay, what's reconciliation? He's like, it's when you do something bad and you say sorry and you don't do it again. I said, yes. And it's like, that was the most easiest explanation I could figure out for a 4-year-old. It's like when you say sorry and you don't do it again. But it's very hard as a First Nations person to look around and see all these things that keep happening to your people, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. So where's the reconciliation in that? So that's why I said the reconciliation is not for us to be constantly reaching our hand out to, right? It's for the other side. It's for our allies. It's for non-First Nations people and leaders to say, okay, let's fix things. Let's start moving forward together. Not one saying, okay, we said sorry, now we're going to do this. Oh, sorry, we're just going to build that road through your land. Oh, sorry, we're just going to cut back on more health benefits and deny you your treaty right to health and treaty rights to education. We're going to impose policy to justify our failure at implementing treaty. That's not very reconciliatory by a government or by a people. So there's a lot of work to do, but we can't stop and we can't give up hope because nobody's going anywhere, right? We're all living here together for the rest of our lives. No one's going anywhere. So we have to work together. We can't be divided. There's more strength in a collective. So we need to realize that we have to work together. We're so busy in our own First Nations, fighting amongst each other over INEC, over politics, from an imposed Indian Act that was never ours to begin with, that we're ignoring what's going on over here. There's all these things happening and being imposed on our people going on over here. And then we're over here fighting about things in our communities. And we're not standing collective. And then next thing we turn around, we're, oh, what happened there? Did you see what they did to us? while we were over here fighting with each other. So like I said at the beginning of my presentation, I got very emotional and I got very frustrated because I have to work on my compliance report that I have to do in 60 days of taking office. I have to report everything I've done in the last 2 years. I have to report all my assets, anything I owe. You know, and then at the bottom of each page, you must remain loyal to Canada. So I'm going to remain loyal to Canada and to First Nations people by telling the truth. And I'm not waiting 6 months to settle in. I'm ready to work now. Because no matter where you go, what office you sit at, government is the same. INAC is the same in how they're doing things, and their bureaucracy and miscommunication. There's 2 very important meetings, gatherings going on next week that as a treaty commissioner I've not been invited to. I don't even know where they are. And I don't even know what days they are, because besides asking my friends, can you send me that document? Can you send me where this meeting is going to be? And I asked INAC, well, it's been 5 days, no one's answered me yet. And the same people I sent an email to walked into the office of the Treaty Commission office in Manitoba yesterday, and, oh, yeah, we'll send you that information later. Well, it's later, it's the next day, I still don't have it. So that's my challenges as a first woman Treaty Commissioner and a First Nations woman Treaty Commissioner. Is being in our communities, being visible, being there more, so people see that the Treaty Commissioner belongs to them, that was promised to them. And working with this government and bringing those parties together to keep talking. But it's hard to do when you have an inherent power imbalance. And that inherent power imbalance is where you have a crown, the government, and you have First Nations. It's an inherent power imbalance, and there can't be a partnership, and there can't be reconciliation when that imbalance is there. So that's why I keep talking about how we need allies. Right? We need to make friends. We need to have those allies. They listen to each other, just like how we listen to each other. But we need to remain collective, and we need to remain strong. If that power imbalance is there, then I can't do my job as a treaty commissioner to bring 2 treaty partners together, because one partner is at a disadvantage. So I need all our help for our First Nations people to make that power imbalance non-existent anymore. So that's why I'm asking our people here, let's stop fighting amongst ourselves. Let's be collective and know what's going on and move forward together, so we can combat the one consistent problem, right, which is breach of treaty obligations. And we have to do that through education and discussion. So there's other people who are going to be presenting. It's 10:15. I went a little bit over. I see Mr. Eric Tattoos got here, and I've heard him talk many times. We have a lot of stories actually with the John Tattoos used to come. I remember my mom telling me these stories about John Tattoos coming, and they'd be making him and Miss bologna sandwiches and Vatican tea, and they'd be on their way to a meeting. And so when I went to go live around North Battleford for a few years, my mom always warned me, you leave those Tattoos boys alone, they're your relatives. They really weren't, but she made sure that those Tattoos boys alone. But they're my good friends. I've heard Eric talk a few times. I don't think he remembers me or knows me, but I worked around there, and he has really, really good knowledge to share with us and to pass on. And like I said, we have Sharon Ben here, who's someone I always looked up to, and the work that she's done. And we have Senator Saul here, who's, I think you must be living under a rock if you don't know who Saul is. He's done lots of work, and he's always a constant advocate for our rights. And with that, I thank you for listening to me. Please help me in this big role I have, but I promise you I'm not going to disappoint this for the first elementary commissioner.
Yeah, now's your time, if you have any Q&A, if there's anybody that wants to ask a question for the treaty commissioner. There's a mic right there, don't be shy. We're here to learn treaties.
When did it all start?
Pardon me? Don't be shy.
So when did it all start?
Oh, when did it all start? The treaties? When did what all start? What did it
Treaties.
The treaties? Yeah.
Numbered treaties are the areas we live in, right? There's treaty 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those are the numbered treaties, 1 through 11. There's peace and friendship treaties, and there's protocol treaties that go back hundreds of years throughout Turtle Island. So when settlers first started coming here, they started making treaty, right? Because it's nation to nation. That means there was these people who came across, right, from their nations in Europe, and they came here and they met the people who were on this land, right? And this would have been the East Coast. And they entered into treaties with those people so they could have access to the land, so they could travel, so they could survive. So treaties began hundreds and hundreds of years ago. 1600s, our numbered treaties began in the 1800s. And so that's why we have our treaties 1 to 11. And there's modern day treaties, such as the Yukon and Nunavut agreements. BC has modern day treaties. Whitecap, Dakota just entered into a memorandum of agreement with the government of Canada to enter into a process to negotiate a treaty, and that's a modern day treaty.
So tell them about Treaty 4.
What is our long-term goal?
Right?
Yeah.
To get through 3 years of an appointment in life. my long-term goal is to do what my mandate sets out. And I have a mandate in an MOA, it's called, that I have to follow when it comes to treaty tables. To bring those parties constantly together, which is the Crown and First Nations. And to get treaty education out to our schools, into our First Nations, in our communities. And we can build allies. My goal is, after 3 years of an appointment like this, is that if we even change one person's mind, or if we educated one person, then that's moving forward. But I plan on doing a lot more than that. So we need to be in our First Nations forum. We want to expand our Speakers Bureau to include people from all the treaty territories, all the linguistic groups, and of all ages. So if you wanted to be on the Speakers Bureau, you could say, I want to be part of that. I want to be interested in it. Because we're all allowed to talk about treaty. It doesn't matter what age we are, right? We have to talk about it, otherwise we don't learn it. And we're on Treaty 4 territory right now. Which I say is the best treaty,
Signed around.
but it's because it's Treaty 4 and I have a bias.
Good morning. My name is Robert Severick. I'm from the Cody First Nation. I'm a Treaty 4 First Nations man, and I'm a father and a husband, and I've got kids, and one of my biggest concerns, besides education and health, is hunting. Hunting in our own territory. Treaty 4 stretches all the way across southern Saskatchewan from Maple Creek, Sapatoya, right into Wayman. Treaty 4 territory. One of my biggest concerns is hunting rights and where we can and cannot hunt. And the conservation officers harassing us, following us, you know, setting up trail cams, trying to catch us in the wrong. And so, is there anybody in your office that we could talk to as a group and maybe set up some kind of meetings with the conservation officers about our tree rights and how somehow our right to hunt and provide for our families is being threatened because the CEOs are not recognizing our rights as First Nations and our right to hunt and provide for our people. You know, we don't go out there to hunt for sport. We don't go out there to hunt to get our antlers measured or scored. You know, you hear stories of the conservation officers going into somebody's home and taking meat out of their deep freezer because they were hunting on the wrong side of the border, but meanwhile, Treaty 4 territory, right? So, one of my biggest concerns is hunting rights. And why are we getting charged for unlawfully hunting on private land when all Treaty 4 belongs to us as First Nations people? Right? So I'm just wondering, is there somebody from your office that we could talk to meet with us and set up some kind of meeting with your people, our people, and the conservation officers? But somebody from the higher up in the office, and I took this to my leaders back home, and I asked them to set that meeting up, and nothing's been done yet. And speaking for myself, I had my rifle taken, you know, I was charged for unlawfully hunting. And so, because I had my rifle taken away, you know, I wasn't able to provide for my family, right? You know, meat is expensive in the stores, especially for the people in the cities. They're paying $20 for a little small roast, you know. And when we're hunting, you know, that meat, it feeds lots of families, you know. Last fall, I fed 6 families. I shot 4 moose, and I shared all that meat, you know. And I fed a lot of families in the city, you know. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or brag about myself, but you know, that's what we were taught growing up. Is we feed the people, right? You know. And my late uncle, James Everett, that was one of the biggest teachings he taught us, is we hunt to feed our relatives and our families and the elders and the kids, you know, they can't provide for themselves. So like I said, for me, that's one of my biggest concerns is hunting rights. And is it possible that we can set up a meeting to discuss those rights and let everybody know and educate the people that don't know the specific rights of First Nations in the Treaty 4 territory that we're hunting? Thank you.
So when there's hunting issues involved, it's always, because the NRTA happened in 1930, right? The illegal transfer of that responsibility and management of wildlife and resources to the province. So there's a lot of hunting rights issues, and especially now, conservation officers have been charging people for hunting outside their treaty territory, you know, using that as a premise, saying, no, you're only allowed to do that in Treaty 4. You're from Treaty 4, so you can't hunt in Treaty 6, or you're from Treaty 6, you can't hunt in Treaty 4. But that was never, ever part of the treaty promises laid out when it comes to hunting, fishing, and trapping. Right? They go ahead and then charge, and then you have to fight it after the fact. Right? And so, I'm familiar with what happened to you, because I was a lawyer, right? And I had a lot of hunting files in front of me. And especially when you're seeing this, this trend start happening of the COs trying to charge people for hunting outside their areas, or saying you don't have a treaty right to hunt in 4 or 6, and that's not true. So there's been 2 hunting cases, and specifically one in Saskatchewan. I forget the name of it, but he was charged by Swift Current around Maple Creek that way, and he's from Manitoba. He's from Treaty 4 in Manitoba. And so the Crown maintained that, you know, he didn't have a right to hunt over here. So he was fighting it, and he needed a lot of help because He's just a regular guy like you, doesn't have a lot of money. So he made an application to the Treaty Rights Protection Fund. So that, the Crown appealed, and they're still maintaining that argument. It's being taken to the Supreme Court. But like I had said before, it's a pretty scary thing when we have to go to an outside court and have them interpret our treaties and our treaty rights, because we're looking for justice in their systems, right? And having to bring the province to that table and make them talk about these issues is very hard. So I imagine when you went to your leadership and said, this is what we need, the province doesn't answer. They say, oh no, we'll send so-and-so. They just want to reply with letters. They're very hard to get to talk. But you can call our office and talk with Milton Tatusis, and I'll let him know that you want to call and discuss this too.
Would not only call, but set up a meeting, right? You need to set up a meeting, even if it's a workshop, education workshop on trees, right? Treaty Board territory, like I said, it stretches all the way across, and there should be no reason for us to be getting charged in our own backyards, right? Not even 5-10 miles away from the reserve, even on the reserve, It's like, there's no need for that, right?
No, just anytime, just call us. And I mean, I'm not a politician, it's not a political office,
Yeah.
but what we can do is bring the parties together, right, and set some serious mandates for meetings and questions.
I don't even want to go into the politics of it, right? I don't want to call no political office, I want to try to keep the grassroots and get the people that, can help us with it. I think that that's one of the jobs of the Treaty Commission, right, is to educate the
Yes, it is about education.
That we know that, we have that right to hunt wherever we want, We're not out there trying to blast anybody, that's another thing, right? It's scary now because of what happened recently in North Alfred,
Yeah.
When we're out there hunting, are we gonna get shot?
Yes.
And I can recall an incident where we got pulled over by the COs, 3 of us, and there were 2 of them. And they pulled us over. We had our guns put away behind the seat of the truck. But when they got out of the car, they were standing there with their jacket like this and their hands up on their guns, ready to pull them out at any second. And they kept backing away from us like we were gonna. But meanwhile, we were unarmed and our guns were put away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's scary, right? Because you don't know what's going through their head. Are they thinking that we're gonna shoot them? When we're out there just to kind of provide for our families, right? Thanks. Probably.
Senator Ted Hughes, still a senator. The question I have maybe is with the Treaty Commissioner's office in Saskatoon and looking at the Prime Minister's last announcement. And I know there's the federal agenda of colonization, transformation, and political accords. The question I'd like to ask you is there some way, somehow, the Treaty Commissioner's office working with our leadership in regards to dealing with the announcements that he made with the terms of the First Nations communities rather than the terms of the colonized process that they have in place? So it's a big question, but is there some way within your mandate or your personal agenda to achieve one of the achievements of getting out of this colonized process that we're in and we're moving forward into the treaty-based process from Treaty 1 to 11? Thank you.
His latest announcements on a framework that, from what I see in that announcement, is basically a framework to replace the Indian Act. And then they came out with these 10 principles of an engagement discussion guide from that. And then you have 10 principles from the Attorney General's office. So they've got these 2 principles on how they're going to deal with federal law review, etc., and then 10 principles on a framework that they're going to enter into, and a discussion guide. And then you have the treaty implementation principles that were set out by the FSIN in 2007. And those treaty implementation principles were reprinted and distributed again. And they were given to the other parties. And just on Tuesday morning, again, I had the FSIN delegates bring their information, those treaty implementation principles, the booklet, right, that was there from 2007 that said this is how the government needs to discuss things with us. This is how they need to deal with us using these implementation principles. So you have 3 sets of 10 principles. The government has their 10 in this engagement that they're doing. And then there's 10 from Wilson Raybould's shop on federal law review. And then you have 10 implementation principles of treaty from FSIN. So you have these parties at the table who had all these 3 different principles. So how do you reconcile those together and see what's compatible and what's incompatible with each other, right? And they maintain the position on the First Nation side that no, these are our implementation principles of treaty, and this is what we are dealt with. This is how we deal with you. This is how you deal with us. And I see they ignore it, or they take piecemeal and think it's going to please First Nations, Indigenous people, or the other party. I've asked for the engagement discussion guide that they had sent out to some people, and I didn't get it from them. I think I got it from Dan Belgard, who got it from Eric Tatusis. And then Dan Belgard had to send it to the RDG of INAC because the RDG of INAC didn't have it either. And then when I asked the government for it, although I'd already had it, it took them 5 days to get it to me. And I said, okay, so I said, tell me how in this document you reference the work that the Office of the Treaty Commissioner has done on the statement of treaty issues and fulfilling the covenant. And those are documents and books that have been produced from that office, and it says we're going to build on the work of these organizations and mention the Treaty Commissioner office. But they've never answered me. Like I said, my Uncle Danny had told me, you keep pushing, you keep making those parties come to the table and talk. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've asked them, where's the meetings next week? I heard there's 2 meetings, Treaty 4 and Treaty 10. I don't know what day, and I don't know where they are, but I'm going to find out and I'm going to show up because I'm the Treaty Commissioner and I'm going to be there and see what they're doing. And I'll keep pushing and trying to make them honor the Crown's obligations. But I'm going to keep pushing, and those principles need to be reconciled, and their tables that they're having off here and there, nobody really knows what tables are going on. So I am pushing to work on that. I want to be informed because I can't do my job if one party, the Crown, is telling me nothing. So I guess I'm just going to have to go and show up there and crash their parties all the time. But that's what I'm going to do to try to do my job, to get those parties back at the table. And I was talking with Sharon earlier about these other things going on over here, right? Well, we're getting caught up in tables and being distracted. And I said, I can't say how much I disagree with those things. She said, I'll say it. And then, I decided, no, I'm just going to tell the truth because I can't be a good Canadian if I'm not telling the truth. So I am going to those meetings, and I do think that there is a role, and I believe that the other party can stop this colonization process or the assimilation process because it's tables according to what they want. And they say we engage First Nations and we're doing co-development, but what is co-development to them? And what is engaging? Because engaging is a new word for consultation, and we need to be very aware of that. When we go to a meeting, even if we sit there and don't say anything, they're going to say, there was people from Keezikus, there was people from Cody's, there's people from Keys there. That was consultation. And we have to be very cognizant of how they use that. Because that's how, using their system, they want to blow over treaty rights.
Good morning. Congratulations on your new position. Just like to thank the elders prior this morning. My name is George Cody, Chief of the Cody First Nation. It was an honor to be here to see the elders here, the young people, to our future generation. Some of our band members are neighboring members as well. Tribal Council at the SIAC. I know Robert had a question here in regards to the conservation officers. We had a chief of council meeting here last week, so we are going to be setting up something in our community in regards to that. So it's going to be a membership meeting with the conservation officers in regards to the tree rights. What I was going to talk about was, how important it is nowadays that, the implementation of the treaty rights and learning our histories be implemented in our school systems now. I remember when I was growing up in school, we had two choices to learn a second language, and it was either French, bonjour, or Ukrainian, chekaj. So, we didn't have a chance to learn our own language, but we know now that we have this opportunity to move forward, as we always see it from our leaders, the FSI level, and the FN level. But I think we have to stress now that the importance of education for being treaty driven now, to get away from the Indian Act, because, as a chief of my community, I don't see the Indian Act even helping us out at all. Kind of causes a lot of division within our communities. And that's what the government likes to see. It likes to see us fighting. It likes to see us have jealousy and bitterness and hate in our communities. And when you speak about the elders from the past generations, with the 7 teachings that they've given us, we kind of lost focus on it because we got away from the treaties. We got away from that nation-to-nation relationship, which was supposed to be just us and the government, all these little things in between that are causing such confusion. And we have a vision that we want to be restored. One of the elders was wondering what the reconciliation and restoration of our spirit. We have an opportunity to turn things around. Our people are getting more educated in areas that we know that will help our people. But we must most focus on our treaties, which is the base or the concrete of our communities. And I really like to encourage our young people that are here today to take advantage of those treaty rights that we have, because they're going to get watered down as we speak today. But we cannot let that happen, because our forefathers, our great-grandfathers that signed these treaties, they knew what they were signing. They knew the future of where we were going to be today. And we must not let anything that's thrown to us in regards to the money that the federal government thinks is the answer to all our problems. And it only brings division into our community because of the loss of the respect that we have for one another. But I know that what we've been given from our great-grandfathers in the treaties is something that we should really base our provincial, our federal, and our local governments on, and stand by that, and not let the government separate us. But I just wanted to make that comment. And congratulations, by the way. Good to see us all, Anderson. Thanks.
I just wanted to say, I guess kind of some of the things that I think about with treaties. I've heard a lot about the cities and the rurals and the feds, but my feeling and my concern is with the provinces. Our treaties were instilled long before the provinces even existed. And you look at our crown corporations like SaskTel, Sask Energy, Sask Power, Sask Liquor Board, all these things, the provincial red tape that we have to follow and abide by as First Nations people, but yet we had laws in place long before that these existed. And when we look at resource revenue sharing and the province and the way they treat our own people, as soon as our people leave federal crown land and hit into the Sask, welfare, the Saskatchewan welfare, the Minister of Social Services, and even our children in care, when it comes down to, like, if I live on reserve, my children get everything paid for going to school and extracurricular, but as soon as I step off the reserve and I'm in provincial territory and I'm not considered an Indian, you know what I mean? So I guess that's some of my concerns I have as a First Nations person is with the province, and maybe the province has to learn to come to the table a little bit more and be a little bit more educated and open-minded to some of these treaties, and that they were here long before they existed, and maybe that they need to share a little bit more with the First Nation people of Saskatchewan.
That's exactly it. It's about education, getting them to understand that, and they also have this delegated authority through NRTA and through delegated authority from the Crown that doesn't work with First Nations jurisdiction. Like where the Crown and the federal government are supposed to have that caretaking and that treaty partnership, no matter where we were. And now that's how those rights have gotten whittled away to where we have ICFS under the control of the province, where we have right to livelihood, security, which is, that right to be able, when you're down and out and suffering, when you leave the reserve, to be able to go and apply to social services for a little bit of help. That was part of our right to livelihood and to exist on this land, and those are the rights that have been imposed by the province. And it's very hard to get the products on the table. I had 2 calls with the Premier Mo, and I'm hoping I can keep pushing, and maybe he'll block me on his phone from calling him and bugging him. But we have to keep trying, and we have to keep push in order for them to have some semblance of reconciliation. Danny's gonna throw me out in there.
I'm gonna tell her, come on, you have 1 minute left. Just about on time here, I think I got 30 seconds to talk about treaty. But anyway, I'd like to thank all the schools for coming out, and one of the things that we want to convey to the young people is you gotta look at treaty, it's very important to you in the future. I know, sitting with my grandfather way back when I was 15 years old, he told me a lot of stuff about treaty and where we are today with treaty. And he told me that our young leaders in the future would sign agreements with the federal government and provinces on a piece of paper, and they would be breaking the treaties themselves. And I see that today as a First Nations person, where we are breaking the treaties. Yet we blame our brothers and sisters, our non-native brothers and sisters. Yet it's us that take a lot of time and we do an MOU. I saw on Facebook an MOU in regards to conservation officers, FSI and signing an agreement with conservation officers, and I could recall that conservation officers weren't allowed to come on the reserve at one time, but now they are. That's breaking the treaty right there. We did that ourselves. And I saw a thing on Facebook, y'all talk about social media. In regards to municipalities, our First Nations becoming municipalities. They're being, what are we doing? That's why we gotta understand treaty. And our grandparents, and I hear not only in our area, but Treaty 6, they always told us, don't take treaty to court. You don't have to. We signed the treaties as nation to nation with the federal government and our nations.